The screencast is a reading of the Brown versus Board of Education for 7th grade social studies. Different races, different schools. In 1950 and 1951, black parents and students in several states got tired of laws that required children of color to attend separate schools from white children. For decades, many states had kept blacks and whites segregated or separated from each other based on their race. In 1896, in a case called Plessy v. Ferguson, the Supreme Court said this segregation was constitutional as long as the separate facilities for blacks and whites were equal. In some places, schools for black children were run down and lacked things like gyms or cafeterias. In many places, there were school buses for whites but not for blacks. Parents had to send their kids across town to school when there were schools right in their own neighborhoods. But closer schools were for whites only. With the help of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP, parents and students decided to challenge the Plessy decision. In Topeka, Kansas, Oliver Brown and several other parents tried to enroll their children in the closer, whites-only schools. They were rejected. In other states, people's efforts to get better facilities for black schools were ignored. The argument. Brown and the others argued that segregated public schools are not equal and cannot be made equal because keeping black and white students separate sends a message that the black students are inferior. Therefore, the very act of separating black and white students violates the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which guarantees equal protection of laws. The decision. The Supreme Court agreed. In a complete reversal from its decision in the Plessy case, the court said that separate but equal doctrine has no place in public education. Separating children just because of race generates a feeling of inferiority as to their status in the community, that they may affect their hearts and minds in a way unlikely ever to be undone. Segregation, therefore, deprived black students of equal protection of the laws under the 14th Amendment. So what? The court's decision rejected the separate but equal doctrine the court had approved 58 years earlier in Plessy v. Ferguson. Now, all white schools could no longer reject black students. Although the court's decision was aimed at K-12 public schools, the decision also applied to colleges and universities. But not everyone was happy with the decision. In 1963, Alabama Governor George Wallace spoke out against letting black students attend the University of Alabama. He stood in the doorway to block 2 black students from being able to register. The conflict ended when President Kennedy ordered the Alabama National Guard to the scene.